starting with focus on personal feelings towards the character, and the audience empathise with the central character. Naturalistic dialogue. Go for it. How is it going to affect our research, first of all? Those things. And how we use it. Go.
Okay, well, we said that you use the personal stories to find out, like, how the character's feeling at the time of an event. And that it's got to be closest to the real thing as possible. That's how we're going to make sure that the audience empathises with the central character and doesn't get the wrong idea. And we also said that you could use quotes from sources, and that show that, like, that's the naturalistic dialogue. So because you're not making it up, it's what the person actually said. Absolutely.
There's two things in there which are really important to highlight. The first one is the obviously it's going to go deep into personal stories, and then taking a character which the audience can empathise with, but not feel patronised, or not feel that we're making a joke of it or something. That's quite hard. In fact, it's really hard to achieve. But you can achieve it by making it very naturalistic. And there's a whole, almost a subgenre of naturalism now, which is emerging, which is about kind of taking verbatim theatre, which is taking real conversations and acting them out and performing them. And we can take that. We can take direct quotes out from our research and use those. So, how is that going to communicate to the audience? Or what is that going to communicate to the audience? I believe it might be written there.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry.
It shows we've done our research.
Okay.
Because it's quite, it's personal stories and that. It depends on the audience if it's relatable or not, but I don't think it will be. Because, I don't know the audiences though. So.
Well, that's true. But, so how does theatre do that though? Because the theatre can never know who's going to come and watch the performance, but yet we can all relate to something about it. Even if it's not our own experiences, can we put ourselves into those people's experiences and think about what our lives would be like? This is very easy. It is horribly easy, actually, to be in a position where you are in this situation. Redundancy, whoever put that down as an idea. That's really easy. That's quite a common thing. And 1 month with redundancy, and then a couple of bills have been missed, and then a couple of more bills, and a mortgage payment, and it spirals. It's very easy. So instead of thinking, okay, I want to relate to that character to be like them, how about relating what happens in my life if my life is like that? Anything else to add?
We also put that the protagonist usually represents, like, the majority of the research that's done. So, like, the central character. So we use the personal stories that we've researched too, and yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I mean.
Yeah. Also, that protagonist can become an anti-hero, in the sense that actually we might not like what they're doing, but it's real life, and that's what they're doing to survive, and it's educating us, perhaps, that actually these things exist. All right, actors.
So the actor prepares with emotional memory techniques. So if you refer to, like, a experience you've had of your own, it will allow you to relate to the stories that you've looked into and then develop your character that way. So you might not have actually experienced it yourself, Tom said. You could be, like, looking from the outside, so that you've witnessed.
But we said maybe bullying would be one that we could relate to, sort of thing. So you can. I forgot what I was going to say. Oh yeah. So for example, with bullying, it's quite easy if you've experienced it to do it. But if it's maybe something like redundancy, you may know someone that's been redundant.
Yeah.
So you could almost maybe even go and ask them what was their experience like.
Absolutely.
And then you'll be able to go, well, actually, what would I do if I was in that situation? And then we looked at how's it going to communicate. We said it would be enable us to do a more naturalistic performance. So you'd have a greater understanding of the situation itself, and it will hopefully allow the audience to empathise with the the characters in the performance, because they believe that that's a real life situation, not an actor putting a face on.
Yeah, and then the second one is exploring the character's past and their motivations. So we'd talk to people maybe that have experienced it and look into the real life situations, which would allow us to perform, again, our character in a particular way that was realistic. It was the same with communicating the research to the audience. It would allow the story to be told clearer due to the depth of research, and therefore it would come out in the performance as well.
And then finally, it was how do we prepare by completing extensive research. It would just allow us to have, a greater understanding and making sure that all the facts were correct and that we were saying the right story, not just almost, as you were saying, being patronising to the character, the person that we're portraying in our performance.
Yeah, both of those actually. Because at the same time, if we're presenting someone who is real, we don't want to belittle their issues, their problems.
Tell the truth, truthfully.
Absolutely. So, overview, because the communication to the audience is starting to go in the same way. So, how are we going to use this to communicate our research to the audience?
We seem to have the same thing.
Yeah, we seem to. It was always just naturalistic came up a lot. It would create a very realistic performance, and empathy. I think empathy came up a lot. It would. The more naturalistic and the greater understanding you have as an actor, hopefully, the audience will be able to empathise more with your character because they'll believe it's real and they'll believe it's a real story. Spot
on, and that's how we're communicating to the audience these issues. Okay, last group, which is structure. So how are we going to use this research and how are we going to use it in our performance?
Well, they're structured with the traditional introduction, orientation, complication, crisis and resolution. We said that it would affect our research because you need analysis of each specific thing or link or event to create a real and gripping performance that flows through each of their stages, and you see the development of it. And you use that in the performance to make it real and believable. And you communicate that to the audience, because if the structure is done correctly, it will present the depth of the situation and the development of the situation, so that shows how thorough your research has been and how you've carried it through.
That's absolutely right. In a sense, you've got to keep the story really simple, so that you can forget about it almost and then focus on the individual responses to the events. Okay. Slow pace, specific areas, probably building on from the same answer, really.
For the slow pace, we've said about, because it's a slower pace, you have this whole build-up to a climax. There's no general, in some stories you go straight to the climax, which is kind of obvious, but with this it's kind of shocking, it builds up. It also shows the detail and how research is being by having a slower pace. It's also a more intimate performance as the orientation is more stronger due to the slow pace of the performance. How it's going to communicate to the audience, it shows the level of detail in the research that's been taken into the characters and the situation.
Spot on. Don't fear. That was right. That was good. Yeah. So I like the idea. And I highlight again the orientation phase is almost really the most important, because these are real people and you've got to get to know them and you've got to get to know the situation really well, therefore to understand the conflicts and the crisis. Okay, finally, aesthetically close to the real thing as possible. Surely I think with all of these we get there.
We've said that as actors we would have to become the person emotionally, physically and in appearance, and you do that by researching in detail emotional recall and looking at people in real life that has been in these specific situations and see how they are and how they behave due to the circumstance they are under.
Yeah, which in essence is what all of these things are leading towards. Super. I'm going to